Jim writes, Fox News Sunday's interview with John Bolton on ramping up the war machine against Iran, which I just touched on briefly. But it was interesting. They had the Iranian foreign minister on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace. And, I actually thought he made a lot of sense and made some good points. Not like that I'm a big supporter of the Iranian government, but in terms of what he was talking about, it was kind of hard to argue with him. And Chris Wallace really didn't give him too much pushback. He tried at times, but the guy really just kind of slapped him down. But then, of course, right after that interview, Chris Wallace has John Bolton on. So they kind of end on, like John Bolton gets the last word because this is still Fox News and they're not about to let fucking Iranians take over the show. So the foreign minister for Iran was, he was saying a lot of to me, I thought he was making a lot of fair points. Like he was like, look, he said at one point, he goes, we're both involved in this region of the world, but the difference is this is our region. This is our region. We live here. This is our land. He goes, and you're involved here. He goes, you've spent $7 trillion just destroying the region. He goes, it's a lot more difficult. We have to deal with all this terrorism now because of you guys, because of what you guys have done. And, he was like, look, we made a deal. We were willing to work with the international community, and we made a deal. And Trump pulled out of the deal because he doesn't like Obama. And the guy even said at one point, he goes, Trump never read the deal. He goes, Trump never read the nuclear Iran deal, whatever it's called, the IMDF or whatever. He goes, Trump never read it. He just doesn't like Obama, so he pulled out of the deal. So that's what we're dealing with here. And then he was basically like, you have what he called the B team, this group of people around Trump, and talking about Pompeo and Bolton, who all want to drag him into a war with us. So it's like, these guys want war with us. He's pulling out of a deal because he doesn't like Obama. So what do you want us to say? This is one of the things, there's a few, but this is one of the things that I get the most shit from right-wing people who listen to the show, because I was a supporter and still stand by that, of the Iran nuclear deal. I thought it was great. I thought it was one of the few really good things that Obama did. And for all the people who are like, but we ended up giving money to this country that, supports terrorism or something like that. It's just like, okay, I could maybe treat you with like a grain of seriousness if you adamantly opposed, like if you have a problem with Obama giving money to a country that supports terrorism, then you better hate Donald Trump for giving $100 billion in weapons to Saudi Arabia, who actually supports terrorist organizations that we have a problem with. First of all, we didn't give any taxpayer money to Iran. We gave frozen assets that were Iran's to Iran. Okay, so we didn't give them any of your money. We didn't give them any taxpayer money. We do, however, supply, maybe not directly taxpayer money, but we do use our military, which is funded by taxpayer money, to prop up the Saudi government, to help them fight wars. And this is like, Saudi Arabia, where the 9/11 hijackers came from. A couple of Egyptians, but almost all, like 12 of them or something, were Saudis. Saudi, we don't have a problem with Shiite extremist terrorists coming over and blowing up shit in America. It's the fucking Sunnis who come get us. And we support these fucking Sunni states. So the idea that Iran is giving money to terrorists, it's like, yeah, where? Where are these, quote, terrorists operating? In Lebanon? In Syria? Maybe a little in Iraq? Like, okay, guess what? That's fucking their region, man. I'm not saying like everything that Hezbollah does is great, but they're really not coming to Europe, coming to America, like fucking up people here. You know who's doing that? Al-Qaeda and ISIS, the people who we serve as their fucking air force in Yemen, in Syria, and even at certain times, depending on what part of the war you're talking about, in Iraq. So, and in Libya. Maybe not their air force in Libya, but we were certainly basically opened up the country for them. So, I don't know. If you don't have a problem with any of that, then don't give me this bullshit about Iran. And you still see John Bolton still has the gall of these people to still claim Iran is working on a nuclear weapon. This is what John Bolton said on Fox News Sunday. Iran, they're really bad actors. They're still working on a nuclear weapon. It's like, yeah, I know. They're going to get it in 3 years, 20 years ago. That's fucking Iran. How much can they keep parroting this bullshit talking point? It's like, you guys are these people are legitimately fucking insane. You're trying to drag us into another one of these wars. And I don't know why they want the fucking war exactly, but it sure as fuck ain't what they're telling you. Because they don't believe that Iran's developing a nuclear weapon. That is some bullshit they say to you so they can try to get the next war that they want. There's no way that they still believe Iran's about to develop a nuke. No, I'm telling you, they're about to. It's like, it's a comedy at this point. I'm 35 years, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm 36, fuck. I'm 36 years old, just had a birthday, it's depressing. I'm 36 years old. They have been saying this my entire life. My entire life. I've heard this. Iran's about to develop a nuclear weapon. I know they're going to fucking start attacking people. And then, of course, the obvious point is just it's like we have this kind of bully empire mentality where we will judge Iran, but you're not allowed to ever say, like, well, do you have to follow that standard as well? Like, does America have to follow the same standard that you're claiming Iran has to follow? That you're never allowed to say, because that's just like, no, well, we're good and they're bad. So obviously not. So John Bolton, without cracking a smile, with a serious look on his face, can get on Fox News Sunday and say, Iran doesn't respect the sovereign borders of its neighbors. And you're like, I mean, you were one of the leading advocates for the wars in countries all around Iran. What do you mean respect the sovereign borders? It's just, but like with no sense of irony, he can just be up there and be like, yeah, Iran is acting very aggressive militarily. Okay, well, let's compare that to the American military and see who's really acting more aggressively. Who's got more bodies? Who's got a higher body count? Iran's military? It's like, yes, Iran is involved in Syria, where, like, they fucking were invited in by the government, and by the way, are fighting ISIS. I think even Donald Trump acknowledged this at a few different points, that Iran is fighting ISIS. Yeah, I guess they've gone into Iraq a little bit, but think about,
don't you also have some Yemen shenanigans with them?
Yeah, I don't even know exactly how much, but yeah, they definitely have like supported the Houthis at certain points. But look, I mean, you got to think about like what's going on here, right? So first off, take them getting involved in Iraq. I mean, imagine if Canada had some like brutal dictator who started a war against us, in 1980 and killed 500,000 of us. And they're a much smaller country than us, so 500,000, proportionally, it would be like a few million for us. And then that dictator fell, and there's all types of shit going on, and we got a little bit involved there. That's kind of different than, like us traveling halfway around the world to start some war of aggression. And in terms of the stuff in Yemen, it's like, well, yeah, look, they are the Israeli government and the Saudi government openly want regime change in Iran. So when those two governments are involved in Yemen, yeah, they supply some support for the other side, but I don't know. It's not even really clear to me exactly how much support they've given to the Houthis. But yeah, look, there's a whole lot of people, for whatever reasons, that really want Iran. They want the Iranian government gone, and they want war with Iran. And it's like Israel, Saudi Arabia, fucking neocons, Pompeo, Bolton, people like that. So anyway, yeah, I think John Bolton's out of his mind. And of course, it's like John Bolton, the crazy thing is that this is the great Tom Woods, the Tom Woods law, that no matter who you vote for, you always get John McCain. But John Bolton, I mean, if anybody ran for president on John Bolton's foreign policy, we know how they would do, because they did. Jeb Bush ran. Lindsey Graham ran. They ran for president. I think they combined for less than 1% of the vote. Nobody's on board with this. And yet they vote for Donald Trump, who's promising the exact opposite, and you still get John Bolton on Fox News Sunday advocating for war in Iran. Look, the idea that Iran is a threat to the United States of America is amongst the most preposterous, claims that anyone could make. They're not a threat to anyone. They're not a threat to Israel. Israel will fucking wipe them off the map. I know all that talk about we'll wipe Israel off the map. Who do you think would wipe who off the map first if it came to war between Israel and Iran? Israel would fucking destroy them. I mean, one side has a far superior military with nukes, and the other one is going to develop nukes in 2 years, 20 years ago. Who do you got in that fight? My money's on the Jews.